623-606 and 634-753, State of Texas versus Charles Gaines. Before we get into this, I have a question for the state and the defense. One of these, apparently, 634-753 is a criminal trespass case, but it talks about a deadly weapon. So my question for both of y'all is, what happened in this case that we can agree on?
So,
go ahead.
So what happened was, and I believe, and maybe Andrew can correct me if I'm wrong, there was some type of abandoned house or a house that was being renovated or something like that. And I believe Mr. Gaines was indigent at the time, and he needed shelter. He went in the home. He broke a window to get into the home, and he went in, and he had a firearm on him, and he fell asleep. And then the owner showed up, called the police. The cops walked in, and he just was asleep on the floor with the gun with him. He didn't reach for it or anything.
The basis of the UCW that we're getting ready to handle, is that correct?
No, the UCW is a separate case where he was just walking down the street and had I believe either two pistols or two revolvers in his pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, the third one is a what?
It was a DWI.
DWI.
Oh, good. That'll be much easier to deal with. All right. Once again, we're talking 621-988, State of Texas versus Charles Gaines. This is an unlawfully carrying weapon. Clause 623-606, State of Texas versus Charles Gaines. This is a driving while intoxicated. First offense case, is that correct, State, or is this higher and we're going to reduce it?
I believe it's a first offense, Judge, but one second.
Is that correct, Mr. Froelich?
I believe so, Your Honor.
Great. And we have clause 634-753, which is a criminal trespass case. State of Texas versus Charles Gaines. First, Mr. Gaines, in all these cases, I need you to identify a couple of documents for me. The first one is entitled Defendant's Consent to Plea by Video Conference. I have one of these for each case, i.e. 3 documents, and each of these say they have your signature on them. Did you sign these 3 documents, sir?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. Froelich, as attorney for Mr. Gaines, did you sign each of these 3 documents?
I did, Your Honor.
Thank you. The next documents I have for you, Mr. Gaines, are entitled Defendant's Waiver of Constitutional Rights and Court's Admonitions, and I have 3 of those. I'm now holding in front of you a document entitled Defendant's Waiver of Constitutional Rights and Court's Admonitions that purport to have your signatures on the back, effectively waiving certain constitutional rights you must waive in order to enter a plea before this court. In fact, Mr. Gaines, is this your signature on each of these documents, clause 621-988, 623-606, and 634-753?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. By signing these documents, are you telling me that you've had enough time to either read these documents or have them read to you in their entirety? If you had any questions about what was on these documents, those questions were answered to your satisfaction by your attorney, Mr. Froelich, so that in signing these documents, you're telling me that you agree with and understand everything on these documents. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Froelich, as attorney for Mr. Gaines in all 3 of these cases, have you had enough time to go over these cases with him? And in your opinion, is he mentally competent?
He is, Your Honor.
Mr. Gaines, are you a United States citizen, sir?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. And Mr. Froelich, as attorney for Mr. Gaines, has the state fully complied with discovery for you on all 3 of these cases?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Gaines, it clause 621-988 to the charge of unlawfully carrying a weapon. How do you plead, sir?
No contest.
Is there an agreement for Mr. Gaines in 621-988?
So, Judge, I believe I'm going to be putting an offer together that will kind of put everything into one here. I was just going to request on this one right on here to run concurrent with everything, 120 days GPS house arrest. Include a motion to forfeit the weapons.
What kind of weapons are these?
There were 2 pistols, Judge. If you give me a second, I can figure out exactly what they were.
I'm just wondering if there's something that's worth anything or there's something that just needs to be destroyed. Mr. Froelich, you know what kind of weapons these were?
Judge, I believe they were leaning towards a destroying variety, but I'd have to look it up to be specific. I don't recall.
Mr. Gaines, do you know what kind of handguns these were we're talking about?
Yes, sir. It was a Smith & Wesson 9mm.
Okay.
And a Smith & Wesson 38 revolver.
Okay, once again, state, these sound to me like decent weapons that be converted for sporting or self-defense use by someone allowed to have them under our law, and I believe Mr. Froelich would be allowed to have them. So in lieu of destroying them, if Mr. Froelich is agreeable, I will award them to Mr. Froelich as Mr. Gaines' attorney as additional attorney's fees, not to be returned to the defendant, his family, or his friends. Is that agreeable to Mr. Froelich?
It is, Your Honor.
Okay. And obviously we'll check and make sure these aren't stolen or something. Is that agreeable to the state?
Yes, Judge.
And actually, Judge, we know they're not stolen. It's there was a case against Mr. Gaines for theft of a firearm that was dismissed because they did run those checks.
Okay,
That's
good.
correct, Judge.
All right. So all three of these cases are going to be somewhat the same in our sentence. Is that correct?
Affirmative, Your Honor. We'd like them to
Yes,
run.
sir.
Let's do me a favor and start over again on 62988. We have a plea of no contest to UCW. Go ahead and tell me what the plea bargain is on this case and probably the majority of the other cases.
It's going to be 120 days, GPS house arrest, motion to forfeit the weapons, and we want to include scram in this, Judge.
Are you working, Mr. Gaines?
I'm disabled, Your Honor.
You're doing what? I'm sorry, I apologize.
I'm disabled, Your Honor.
Oh, okay. So do you get some sort of money from the federal government or the state government for being disabled?
Yes, sir. Just a little bit, but
How much money a month do you get from any source for being disabled?
1,200, Your Honor.
200?
1,200.
400?
12,
1,200.
1, 2, Your Honor.
I got it.
Yeah.
So is that enough money for you to live on? Are you living in an apartment or where are you living?
My rent is $875 by itself.
Okay, but you're not homeless anymore?
Yeah, that's why I'm homeless. I stayed in an extended stay hotel.
Okay, we're going to have a problem, state, because we can't have full GPS unless we got a house with a telephone in it, I think.
That was a consideration that Mr. Gaines and I had discussed, Your Honor. We had talked specifically about the extended stay versus an apartment, where he would commit to being at that location for a few months. To be completely frank with Your Honor, there is a phone there. We had talked about the same thing, GPS, but just less time. Mr. Gaines does think he can stay at the extended stay for a couple of months. Have that same address, have that same location, which would allow him to do GPS, we believe. But again, it would be up to Bexar County Jail to facilitate that.
Judge, go ahead. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off, Andrew.
That's all good. I want to talk about the GPS conditions, Judge, because the alternative, of course, being the Bexar County Jail. My client does have the COPD, is disabled, and well, he's not as young as I am. Let's just say that. So we do have considerations with the Bexar County Jail and their conditions there. So we thought that GPS would be a reasonable solution that would allow him to do that, but just not, licking a bowl of COVID, as they say. So.
Hey, Mr. Gaines, let me ask you a personal question. Would you mind sharing with us how you're disabled so that that's something I can understand when I'm coming up with a sentence for you?
I have a fused shoulder,
Okay.
basically bolts through my shoulder. My right arm don't work, just from the elbow down.
Okay. So you're not going to be playing shortstop anytime soon. Is that what you're telling me?
No, sir. No, Your Honor.
And
I have
And Andrew, just to clarify, Mr. Gaines was in the military, correct? He's a veteran?
I was about to say that exact same thing. Yes, he was. Mr. Gaines, which branch were you in?
United States Army.
Army? Our Army?
Yes, sir.
All
Yes,
right.
Your
What
Honor.
did you do in the Army, sir?
I was a supply clerk, PLL, 76 Charlie,
Did you go to any wars in there anywhere?
Panama, Your Honor.
You were in Panama?
Yes, sir. Yes, Your Honor. Bravo Company, 1st of the 228th Aviation.
And what unit were you in when you were, is this during the invasion of Panama in
Yes, Your
1989? And what
Yes,
unit
Your
were
Honor.
you with? What was your unit at that time?
Bravo Company, 1st of the 228th Aviation.
Ah. Were you stationed down there or they shipped you down there for the war?
That went for the war, but I stayed there for 2 years.
Did you ever go to Torrijos de Cuman
No,
Airport?
no, Your Honor.
Well, that's why you didn't see me then, I guess. But thanks for your service.
I went to Panama and then to Fort Carson.
Okay. Do you have a VA disability based on any of that?
No, not yet, Your Honor.
Okay. State, back to you. Does Mr. Gaines have any prior offenses I need to know about with regard to crafting a equitable sentence?
Yes, Judge. I want to be fair here, so let me pull up just his convictions and not what he's been charged with.
My understanding, though, is he's not a convicted felon.
And while you're at it, I'd like to know Mr. Froelich's priors too. I was probably there for half of them. That's kind
Objection, Your Honor. That is not fair, and that will only prejudice my client.
I only had one conviction back in 92.
Let's see, he was given deferred in 94 for assault. He has an unlawful carry back in 93. Yeah, that's he's correct. Actually, it's actually it was 94, not 92. He has a conviction, Judge.
Okay, so Mr. Gaines, I think we can all agree you're not a serial killer. Is that correct, sir?
Correct, sir.
That's a joke, sir.
Oh, wait. Yeah, I'm not a serial killer. The deferred, I took 10 deferred, 10 years deferred, did 6 and terminated 4 years early.
Okay.
That's correct.
State, for what reason were you concerned about wanting full GPS on Mr. Gaines and scram on Mr. Gaines?
So this is just going back to, but for COVID, Mr. Gaines would probably be serving his time in the Bexar County Jail. But the state is going to take into consideration his disability, COPD, and the fact that, the jail conditions aren't the best right now. So that's why we wanted the full GPS house arrest to somewhat simulate what that would be in Bexar County. As for scram, that goes towards the DWI. I would hate for him to drink and then get behind the wheel.
Mr. Gaines, I'm going to ask some more personal questions with your permission. My concern is where you're going to be staying. Do you have a primary house that you stay in or friends to stay with? Obviously, you don't own a house or an apartment, right?
I was staying at the Wood Spring Suites. It's extended stay. It's like a kitchenette.
Okay.
But I have, family and friends, Your Honor, that I could, if I have to, I could stay.
So where are you going to stay tonight?
At Wood Spring Suites.
Okay, and is that like an apartment? Is that what you said?
It's a kitchenette, Your Honor.
Okay.
It's like a room that has a refrigerator, stove. It's like extended stay when you stay for a long period of time.
How often do you stay there?
Honestly, I've been there for a while now.
Okay. What does that cost you a month to stay there?
It's when you pay the whole month, Your Honor, it's $27 or $30 a day.
Okay. So plus or minus $1,000 a month, probably.
Right, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Maru, my concern is he's not absolutely going to be there. I don't know that I have the authority to order him to stay there for, a year or something. He's likely to be moving around. And I don't think he's going to be eligible to get GPS on him under those circumstances. And I don't think he's going to be, and as far as scram goes, you got a DWI. Is there something aggravated about this DWI that we're talking about scram instead of Smart Start Mobile?
No, Judge, it's just the state's concern when we're putting people on house arrest for a DWI. We're worried about drinking and then getting behind the wheel.
All right. Well,
to serve their time in Bexar County, it's not really a concern of ours.
Are these just recommendations from the state? Y'all don't have an agreement on any of these?
No, we're open right now, Judge. This is just also.
We can always do bad things to Mr. Gaines in the future if he doesn't do what we tell him to do. And I'm sure Mr. Froelich has advised him how nice and kind and gentle I am if he doesn't do what I tell him to do. Isn't that correct, Mr. Froelich?
I'm sure that Mr. Gaines has a pretty good idea of what if he doesn't follow the rules, what's going to happen.
I want to start off, and I'm going to put him on weekly report in UA. So if you're using any drugs or alcohol, we're going to figure that out. You're going to be on a Smart Start mobile device, which is a home portable breath testing device you got to pay for. And I think, Pat, correct me if I'm wrong, it's like $150 initially to get it set up. And then it's like $85 or $90 a month. And he's going to need that for half the time of the DWI, which is probably going to be a year, I think. State, is that not your recommendation on the DWI timeframe?
Judge, everything was going to be the house arrest.
Okay. I just don't think house arrest. I mean, even if we wanted it to happen, he's not in a position.
I understand, Judge. I understand.
So I'm willing to give Mr. Gaines the benefit of the doubt, with the understanding that if there's any problems, if Jesus Christ himself came down from heaven above, you know, he's not going to be able to help Mr. Froelich save you the next time. You're going to get saved this time, and that's the only time you're going to get saved. So does that sound fair to you, Mr. Gaines?
Yes, Your Honor.
Fair enough. Okay, so state, go ahead and continue your recommendations. I've got the GPS recommendation and the SRAM recommendation, and I assume all the basic DWI courses and stuff for the DWI, is that correct?
Yes, Judge, that's what we were going to recommend.
And no contact with whatever the house was that he had a criminal trespass on. Is that not something we probably should do?
Yes, Judge.
Do you have an address of that house?
1 second.
Not that I'm trying to throw in extra conditions, but I don't know if there was any damage to the house or not either.
Okay.
There was. 1 second.
Just trying to be fair.
You own a car right now, Mr. Gaines?
No, Your Honor.
Whose car were you driving when you got a DWI?
It was a friend's truck. He had brought it to my house for my cousin to work on it. And I was moving the truck from the front of the house to the back of the house where my carport is. I wasn't out driving, you know, riding around. I was just moving it from the front to the back, and she passed me.
Do you have a valid driver's license right now?
No, sir, Your Honor.
So you're not going to be driving anymore. Is that more or less accurate?
That's correct, Your Honor.
All right, good answer, sir. Go ahead, Nick.
Judge, the address?
Yep.
The address is 5336 Gawain Drive. That's Golf, Whiskey, Alpha, India, November, Echo.
Gawain, Golf, Whiskey, Alpha, India, November, Echo, GWAINE. That's the name of the drive?
GWAIN.
Gawain.
Gawain.
Golf, Alpha, Whiskey, Alpha, India, November.
Correct.
So, all right. And that's in San Antonio, I'm guessing?
Yes, Judge.
Did Mr. Gaines have any idea whose house that was, or he just walking down the street and the door was
I think
open?
he's just walking down the street and saw an abandoned house, Judge.
Okay. And did you say there was damage to the house that we can attribute to Mr. Gaines, or was that something?
There's damage. We can just put restitution, if any, Judge.
Okay. And who's that going to go to? Do we have a name of a person?
Yes, Judge. One second. David, CARACCIO.
Charlie Alpha, Romeo Alpha, Charlie India, Oscar?
Correct.
Karachi.
Correct.
And he's the person that owns or lives at 5336 Gawain Drive, San Antonio, Texas?
Yes, Judge.
Okay. And what kind of damage are we talking about? Do you have any kind of idea?
It was a broken window, Judge.
Okay. And there's no chance that the state's going to file on Mr. Gaines for burglary or anything as a result of all this? We're
No,
going to resolve
Judge.
all that today? Okay.
No, Judge. Lack of intent.
Okay.
Your Honor, he
Yeah.
has an active warrant on this case.
No.
That was a bond increase, Judge, that you did because Mr. Gaines, as he's told you, didn't have the money to do the breathalyzer as a pretrial condition. So you increased his bond due to that on the DWI and the UCW, I believe.
All right, we'll get that squared away today. And state it's your intention that Mr. Gaines not get deferred adjudication on any of these. They're all going to be found guilty. Is that what you're hoping for? Or is that on the table or not?
Sorry, Judge, I had a call from my boss. I'm sorry.
Is it the state's position that you're opposed to deferred adjudication, or is
Judge, I just look, I don't think he's really eligible for deferred, Judge.
and Mr. Froelich, is that true?
Judge, my client, we had discussed a number of different options, and I don't know if Mr. Gaines wants to talk about that, but we had discussed all the different options on the table for Mr. Gaines that I'm aware of.
Veteran Treatment Court as well.
He did meet with the vet court guys a couple times. So if that's something that he wants to consider now, that's up to Your Honor and Mr. Gaines. But I will tell you, we did talk about all the different options that he could have taken.
All right, give me a minute. I've got something going here. Okay, Mr. Gaines, in clause 621988, the court accepts your plea of no contest to defense of unlawfully carrying a weapon. I find you guilty. I assess 1 year in the Revere County Jail, probated for 1 year. A $500 fine plus court costs, 48 hours community service, probating all that based on your military service. Smart Start Mobile, home interlock, 6 months, DWI education, DWI victim impact panel, weekly report, and UA. Case to run concurrent with 623-606 and 634-753. No contact with either David Caraccio or 5336 Gawain Drive, San Antonio, Texas. And restitution, if any, payable to David Caraccio at 5336 Gawain Drive in San Antonio, Texas. I think I mentioned it runs concurrent with the other 2 cases, 623-606 and 634-753. Anything further from the state of the defense on this particular case?
No, Judge.
No, Your Honor.
Next case is 623-606, which is a driving while intoxicated first offense. Mr. Gaines, in clause 623-606 on a DWI first offense, how do you plead, sir?
No contest, Your Honor.
Thank you. State recommendation on this case?
Along with what you just had, Judge, 1/1.
Thanks. Well, this is going to be a 6 months over 1, correct? We get it to B?
You're right, Judge. You're right, Judge. Or wait, I looked it up. It's over a 0.15, so we can go ahead and waive the enhancement, Judge.
No objections.
I forgot to mention in clause 621988, the Community Alliance for Traffic Safety New Intervention Program. I'm going to make all these probations basically the same for all practical purposes. We're adding catnip to that one and to the other two.
That makes sense, Judge.
Okay, clause 623606, the court grants the state's motion to waive the greater than 0.15 enhancement and accepts the defendant's plea of no contest to the offense of driving while intoxicated first offense. I find him guilty. Says 6 months in the Bexar County Jail, probated for 1 year, $500 fine plus court costs, 48 hours community service, probating all that based on his military service. DWI education, DWI victim impact panel, Smart Start mobile home interlock for 6 months, Community Alliance for Traffic Safety New Intervention Program, no possession or use of firearms. We're going to do that on all three of these cases. No contact with David Caraccio or 5336 Gawain Drive, San Antonio, Texas, and restitution, if any, to David Caraccio. If in fact Mr. Caraccio puts in a claim and the defense is advised by the probation department and doesn't agree with that, we can have a restitution hearing if that becomes necessary upon your request, Mr. Froelich.
Absolutely, Your Honor. One other thing, Judge, could we waive as many waive as many fees as possible, especially on the alcohol monitoring devices? If there's anything you can do, Mr. Gaines obviously has talked about. I mean, he's indigent. He nothing of his circumstances has materially changed since his he filled out his indigency forms. He has put some stuff on the record today about his income. So any break in the amount of money this is going to cost him would sincerely be appreciated.
I don't know that I have the authority to waive fees on a Smart Start mobile device. I'll ask Brooke if I do. Apparently there's a certain amount of scram devices that we can, that the county will pay for, but there's like a waiting list on those. I mean, if he wants to volunteer for scram and that we can get that one free and the other one costs $100, that's okay with me. That's up to you guys.
I mean, I think that would be anything. I think the money would be the biggest concern for him. I mean, if I could go back to those pretrial conditions, one of the reasons he was unable to complete his pretrial conditions was he was unable to afford the alcohol monitoring device. He picked up a warrant, and that kind of gets what we're here for. So my main concern would be his inability to afford some of these conditions. So understanding it's better than the alternative, and we sincerely appreciate waiving the fines and the community service. I just don't want to put him in a position where his income is the reason for failure.
Well, I think Mr. Gaines is a wonderful person, but he put himself in this situation, not me or you or the state, and he's got to have some sort of punishment aspect of it. He's getting credit for paying one $500 fine for 3 of them. So I mean, can't get a whole lot better than that. If he has problems paying and stuff, we'll talk about it as we go along. But I just can't carry the weight of the world on my shoulders. You know, there's certain things he's got to do. He's got to go to these programs, and if they cost money, if I have the authority to waive them, I'll be happy to. If I don't have the authority to waive them, he's going to have to come up with the money and do it. It's just the way it works. So I'll be as nice as I can be under the circumstances, but I can't work miracles. All right, anything further from the state of the defense on Mr. Gaines in 623-606?
No, Judge.
Okay. Clause 634753, Mr. Gaines, the charge of criminal trespass. How do you plead, sir?
No contest, Your Honor.
Now, state, is this a Class A or a Class B criminal trespass?
It's gonna be a Class A, Judge.
And is the correct term criminal trespass with a deadly weapon? Is that correct?
Yes, Judge.
All right. Mr. Gaines, you pleading no contest to the Class A offense of criminal trespass with a deadly weapon. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, Your Honor.
Fair enough. Was there another handgun taken as a result of this criminal trespass? We talking about 3 handguns and all this?
I believe so, Judge. Yes.
What kind of handgun is involved in this case, Mr. Gaines?
It was a 380 automatic.
You know who made it?
I don't remember, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Froelich, you willing to take this thing too so I don't have to destroy it?
Absolutely, Your Honor.
It's not listed in the offense report, Judge.
You know, I might have it in the felony one. Let me check that part again too. Because the felony is charged as a theft as a firearm.
Yes.
Of course, it was later dismissed because it came back not stolen. I'm sure they ran it in here, and I have that part of it somewhere. Just going. There's a lot of paperwork here, so I want to make sure that I get all these correct. It's a Bursa Thunder 380.
Right when you say it, I find it.
Guy with no money, Mr. Gaines, at least you're buying some quality guns every once in a while. I've got to give you +5 for that.
Had them for a while, Your Honor.
And Mr. Gaines, with regard to that thing, instead of destroying it, do I have your permission to give it to your attorney as additional attorney's fees?
Yes, Your Honor.
Once again, with the understanding not to be returned to Mr. Gaines, his family, or his friend. Okay, in clause 634753, the court accepts Mr. Gaines' plea of no contest to the offense of criminal trespass with a deadly weapon. I said 1 year in the Bear County Jail, probated for 1 year, a $500 fine plus court costs, 48 hours community service, probating all that based on his military service. No contact with David Caraccio or 5336 Gawain Drive, San Antonio, Texas, and restitution, if any, payable to David Caraccio. DWI Education, DWI Victim Impact Panel, Community Alliance for Traffic Safety New Intervention Program, Smart Start mobile device for 6 months. State's motion to destroy the weapon is denied. Weapon awarded to defense counsel. Additional attorney's fees with the understanding it's not to be returned to Mr. Gaines' family or his friends. This case will run concurrent with 621988 and 623606. Anything further from the state of the defense on Mr. Gaines and 634753?
No, Judge.
No, Your Honor.
It looks like I have about, if I were in a stacking mood and Mr. Gaines were to do bad things and violate his probation, it looks like I could put him in jail for 2 years. Would that be more or less accurate, Mr. Froelich?
Based on my understanding, yes, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Gaines, I think you're a wonderful guy and I appreciate your military service, but all this little problems need to stop, okay? So your attorney has won this time and gotten you your freedom, and you're not going to jail, and all all the crimes against you have been dismissed, the felonies and whatnot, and you're on probation for these 3. All I can wish you is good luck and tell you that if you have problems with the monies on some of this stuff, get with your attorney, he'll get with me, and whatever slack I can cut you, I will, but there's certain things I just can't do. Do you have any questions at this time, Mr. Gaines?
Okay. How long will I be on probation?
A year.
A year?
Yeah, unless you screw up, at which point we can extend you, which you probably don't want to do, or you can be revoked if you violate our probation terms, and then it'll be jail, because I don't really have any other options on you. And I'm also ordering no firearms possession or use on all these 3 cases until this is all over. So if you got any other firearms, you're going to have to give them to somebody else to hold for you until your probations are over. And you got to stop drinking.
Oh, man.
Nobody said it was going to be easy, but it's a lot easier than being in jail. So look at the positive side. But if you have any questions, now's the time to ask them, or you can ask your attorney later, and we got the rest of our lives to answer any questions you got. The probation. Go ahead, sir.
Can I ask you a question, Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
If I took Bear County time, how much time would I be looking at?
In taking jail time instead of being on probation?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
What's your recommendation if you wanted to do that?
How much time would I? Oh.
Hang on, sir. We're going to find out for you.
For all 3 cases, 120 days.
All 3.
120 days.
We would ask for less.
And defense, what would be your position on all that?
I mean, Judge, I don't even know if they're doing 2 for 1 or 3 for 1 at this time. So I would say, based on the conditions, I mean, we would ask for 30 days.
I understand it's 1 for 1 right now. I don't understand why that is, but that's what I'm being told from sources.
I mean, Mr. Gaines would definitely be a trustee. Otherwise, he wouldn't have a problem if it was 90 days at 3 for 1. I think that would be understandable. But if we were doing 1 for 1, I'm gonna have to say that a 30-day sentence would be more reasonable. And again, like I said, if he were a trustee, 90 days, 3 for 1, and we could come somewhere in the middle. But being that it's 1 for 1 at this time, Judge, we would have to ask for a 30-day.
Okay. If it's up to me, and apparently it is, I would follow the state's guide on this. I think 120 days would be a gift for 3 cases, 2 involving firearms. So that being said, if you guys want to go in the chat room and talk about that, the sentence would be 120 days in the Bear County Jail. You'd be reporting on Monday morning. You'd get the rest of this week. Well, I mean, that's 2 days now to get your affairs in order or whatever. I don't want you to go to jail. I'd rather you be on probation, but that's up to you guys. So why don't y'all take a break and go in the chat room and y'all chat about it, and we'll stand by.
Yes, sir.